welcome to the Mother Days podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Teresa Palmer.
And I'm Sarah Wright Olson. Hi, daisies.
Hi.
You guys, we are so excited and honored and just thrilled to have our guest on today that we have. I actually met this woman at Christy Dawn's house. So Christy, who we've had on the podcast before, and I'm saying Christy Dawn because I want you to know that it's like the brand, but that's obviously not her full name. But we were at Christy's house and she was having this beautiful like herbal. We were making medicine and we were doing this like honoring the earth, this like meditation. I was so moved. I was telling Teresa that like I felt high when I was doing it because I was just like, what is happening? And I did not know you at all. But yet I felt really connected to you during this thing that was happening. So I was just like, okay, I have to reach out to this woman afterwards and be like, I need you to come on our show. So today we have with us Marysia Mierowska, and we're so excited to have you here. Welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. So sweet to be with you both.
So you have to describe what was this thing that you were doing? What was this event? Like what? I want to hear more about it because Sarah said to me, she was like, she is one of us. Like she's unbelievable. She's one of our type.
So Marysia is a teacher, an author, an herbalist dedicated to earth-based healing practices rooted in wise women tradition. She integrates diverse herbal traditions and emphasizes sustainable and regenerative land care. Her work includes teaching, writing, creating herbal products, and actively supports cultural sensitivity in her practices. She also offers training and helps connecting people with plant spirits, regenerative farming. And also you wrote a book. And
yes.
The title of your book, we were literally like looking at your book. We were like, what? It's called The Witch's Herbal Apothecary Rituals and Recipes for a Year of Earth Magic and Sacred Medicine Making. I mean, come on, you guys. Is there anything more the Mother Days than that?
That's so true. And you live in Topanga, is that right?
Yes,
oh my gosh,
right.
Heaven. And you have a daughter? One daughter?
Yes, I have a daughter named Flora.
Oh,
yes.
Beautiful.
Oh my God, what a great name.
That is a great name.
She's 12. She just turned 12. I can't believe it. Yeah.
How amazing. Yeah. So tell us, like, what was this experience that you guys had together? Because Sarah is just going on and on saying, this woman is unbelievable. She's one of us. I want to hear about it. So what do you offer up?
Well, so I run an herbalism school. Like you mentioned, it's called School of the Sacred Wild. And essentially I take people on this journey, and most of the people who are called to this work are women. And I think that's because us women, we tend to be the caretakers, and we are always nourishing our families. And in this modern world, we can sometimes fall out of nourishment with ourselves. And I bet that the reason, Sarah, that you resonated so deeply with what we were doing is because we were in this ceremony and in this place of opening our hearts and really connecting to that essence of Ma, right? That Ma energy, that unconditional love that the mother has, and also like the vast, fierceness that the mother can hold. And then I feel like as mothers also, we midwife death and rebirth constantly through our own lives, through our own bodies. And so in so many ways, motherhood is such an embodied spiritual, emotional, personal growth journey that really resonates and kind of is very similar to the practice of being a green witch, a plant witch, an earth tender. And so what we were doing that day is we were really entering that vibration of the mother, and then really honoring and praising the earth mother, right? And we were making herbal medicine together. And these are also things that it's so funny. I've worked with thousands and thousands of people, and again, mostly women, but all people, all genders. And it's like, there's something about when we start to make herbal medicine and work with the plants or with the earth or in our gardens, right? There's like this remembering in our bones, and it's not even intellectual. It's not in the head. And that can be such a healing thing to enter that and kind of to remember through the body, through the heart.
Wow. I wonder if it's like, Sarah, that tapped into something that you've experienced before, whether it be in past lives or subconsciously, like you just were in this energy where you thought, I feel alive here. I'm like deeply, deeply rooted to the work of these women. I think that's so cool.
You know, I have like such a draw to nature and like being, and I always say like I want to be around like trees, and like I grew up in Kentucky, and so it was very like just out in the woods or like out on the farm or whatever it was. And so I feel really connected to the earth and to like the family and like the land and everything when I'm in a little bit less of a city and a little bit more removed into like, where I can see land for miles and miles and mountains. And like, that's just
like Idaho.
More of, it's like my happy place. Like I just feel really in my body. And Christy's like, she has these crazy gorgeous trees, and it was just like, it just couldn't have been a more perfect setting for all of this. And I was just like, I was like, I want to move here. I was like, what is happening? It was just so magical. But then everything that you were talking about too, I was just connected so much with. I would love for you to speak a little bit more about just that, like making, like even what we were making that day, like the making medicine, and like why that is so special and so good, and how you can do that yourself, and your book and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I love that you mentioned how you just feel so much more relaxed and like open when you're in nature. And I feel like, it sounds like you have a personal connection to nature. And then it's also just so neat to recognize that we are nature as human beings. We're not separate from nature. We are the earth. We are the elements of water and earth and air and fire. And even, they did these studies in hospitals and found that people who are in hospitals that have just paintings or photographs of trees, they heal faster. And hospitals that have windows and that have just a tree outside, like the process of the body regenerating and healing itself speeds up in that environment.
Wow.
So there is something that's just so kind of primal and universal about who we are and how nature heals us. And, to answer your question, making herbal medicine, I think it's something that has in a lot of ways been taken away from us. There was a real clear kind of intentional departure from people being able to make medicine in their own homes. And, even like home birthing. I know that you guys have talked about home birth on the podcast before. And, home birth used to be very common, and midwives were very common. And there was a specific moment in the history of the US where they started printing photographs in newspapers of these women with like, these kind of like rags and just looking all like warty and being like, do you want this hag to birth your baby? Or this man in this white suit on
man.
this, on this like metal thing. And so there was a real kind of intentional propaganda campaign to convince women at the time who were more, able to pay for that like this would be the safer, healthier way. And I think one of the big grievances among all of the women that I've worked with in the midwifery field and as, medicine women, is that there wasn't a transference of knowledge. It's so great that we have hospitals that people can birth in. It's what a blessing. So many lives are saved. And there was never a moment of curiosity of like, hey, you ladies have been birthing these babies for thousands of years collectively, right? Like, what can we do? And so I think it wasn't until like 10 years ago that the infant mortality rate was equivalent in hospitals to what it was before births became hospitalized. So there was such a setback. And so, again, it kind of goes back to this really interesting trend that we've noticed in modern times that luckily is like it's pretty recent still. It's definitely our generation. We were born into it, but our grandmothers, like, they still kind of had one foot in each of the worlds in a way.
Yeah.
And so, just knowing like what plants to harvest, knowing what grows outside of your home, knowing how to heal your kid if they're sick. These are things that belong to us and that, really make us all healthier as people. And like, thank goodness that doctors exist and they're so great at emergencies. They're so great, at interventions. They're so great when there's a need for them. But most of the time when we're getting sick, we can tell, and there's so much we can do so safely and in a nourishing way for ourselves and for our children. So yeah, I'm definitely on a mission to help people remember these skills.
Oh my goodness.
And it's so empowering when we start to make our own medicine, when we can heal our kids and cure infections and do these sorts of things.
How has your journey into, I was laughing with Sarah because in Australia we say herb, we pronounce the H, and she's saying herbalism. Anyway, so herbalism and earth-based healing, how has that influenced you as a mom?
Yeah, I think it's been such a huge influence in my motherhood journey. And I feel like as an herbalist and as someone who's trained in herbalism, because I have a little bit more of an understanding of the history of medicine and different traditions of medicine, I think that it gave me like a healthy curiosity in different moments where I had to make decisions about my daughter's health of like, okay, this is one way that's being recommended, and what are other ways, and being able to kind of research them and do some of my own research. But then really like on a day-to-day basis, I mean, my daughter, she's had to take antibiotics once because there she did get this ear infection that we couldn't kick. But other than that, every ear infection she's had, she's very prone to them. Every cold, every virus, every flu, we're able to get rid of with herbs, with elderberry, with garlic, with echinacea, with elderflowers, with, just really common plants that grow everywhere, and with like soup and rest and all of those good things. And I think that's been really great for both of us.
Wow.
And, for myself, I also used to have ear infections a lot as a kid, and my parents would just give me antibiotics, and then I had like gut issues later in life, and I'd get antibiotics for the gut issues. And, I feel like I've spent like all my 30s and 40s rebuilding my gut. And it's just,
that makes sense.
I had this situation recently because, my husband is really big into like medicine, like through food. He's been plant-based for a really long time, but he had a really horrendous case of colitis, like really, like he was on death's door. It got really, really bad. And he completely healed himself through food. And he's really passionate about it, and through herbs and, just natural medicines. Anyway, so I was away on my own without my husband, and my kids just came down. Both of them came down with crazy things. But my daughter got this particular like skin-eating bacterial infection. And my husband's like, treat it with, this and that. He was trying to give me all the natural things. But I want to like hear about that. I just started doubting my knowledge in it, and I got afraid, and it was going like at a really rapid speed, and it was like opening up, and immediately I'm like straight to the hospital, straight on antibiotics. And she had this thing called Bulius impetigo. So she's been on antibiotics now, and Mark was like, totally respects my decision to go and do that, but he's got a whole protocol on how to rebuild her gut health.
Great.
Which is great. But like, I do get nervous in those moments where I don't want to just lean on, my husband's knowledge. I'll be like, I'm on my own and I don't want to make the wrong choice, and I just want to go to the doctor and I want to get the antibiotics. Do you hear that a lot?
Yeah. And I think there's nothing wrong with that too. One of the things that I love about the wise woman tradition of healing, which is the tradition of medicine that I teach, is that it's non-dogmatic. So I think so often in holistic circles, we're like, this is the only way. Everyone should be plant-based, or like you should never take antibiotics, or like zero vaccines, or all vaccines, or whatever it is, right? It's everyone can get so extreme and start making generalizations or assuming, that there's one truth. And the reality is like each of our bodies, I mean, are so magical and mysterious and complex and ever evolving. I mean, we are this living ecosystem that is in response to the living ecosystem of the earth. And it's a very beautiful and humbling thing to know that we are not a machine and we're not all the same. And so, I feel like your intuition was probably right on. I mean, that sounds really scary. And it sounds like it
looked like a spite. It looked like a brown recluse bite.
Yeah, I thought it was a spider bite. I didn't know what to do. And I was like,
yeah. And the fact that it was changing rapidly, right, is an you don't want an infection to spread.
Yes.
And so, and so that's great. And I think that's what's so important is in the end, we become more capable of trusting ourselves when we don't pigeonhole ourselves into like one dogmatic corner. And so to be able to become, more vast and like there are many tools and I will educate myself and have skills in some of them. And then, know that I can choose from any tool.
Do you find that you have lots of friends who come to you who are like, can you help me treat this?
Yes.
Or my daughter? Yeah, I'm sure you get it all the time. Oh my God.
I have a rash. I have like a weird stomach thing.
Can I take echinacea for this? Like it's
totally. What's so cool though is that like herbal medicine is pretty simple to learn. And, and there's patterns, like there's patterns of disease as well as there's patterns of wellness. And the plants have this language and it's really beautiful. So like, rashes, any rash is heat, right? It's inflammation, it's redness. And so you can kind of develop this understanding of like, okay, there's heat and inflammation and redness. And so I want to cool, sedate, calm, or if you have like the opposite, like this like wet, damp belly and like you're like bloated and gassy and you eat and you're just tired, like that's the opposite, right? There isn't enough heat, perhaps. Like there isn't enough movement or metabolism. It's like this damp, stagnant swamp. And so then bringing in things like ginger, right? Like things to kind of move energy. So it's so fun to get to understand and learn the language of the plants and of the body.
Well, if somebody that's listening to the show was thinking about getting pregnant soon, would they what should they be drinking? What would you be like, this is just the most beautiful herb or something?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I love that question.
And we might be writing it down, both of us. Off to the side. Yep,
for our listeners.
Yeah, just for the listeners, not for ourselves at all.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, one of the things that I like to remind folks about when we're trying to get pregnant is like the body and fertility. We get pregnant when we're relaxed, when we're like oozing pleasure, and when there's an abundance. This is, I think, what's so fascinating about our bodies is they haven't really changed that much. Our nervous system hasn't really evolved past, what it's been for thousands of years. But then our modern life is so different and it's really stressful, really high paced. We're constantly pushing ourselves. It's not, and I think that's actually one of the reasons that we have this climate crisis is because we're in this world that's like push, 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 produce, 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 go, go, go. And there isn't this natural seasonality of like the moment of producing and of creating, and then the moment of reaping and within like celebrating the fruits, and then the moment of harvesting and sharing with others, and then the moment of like composting and letting things decay, and then the moment of rest and non-doing. And when we start to kind of weave our bodies and our daily rituals and our lifestyle into those regenerative rhythms that are mirrored in the seasons of winter, spring, summer, fall. They're mirrored in like the sunrise and the peak of the day and the release of the day and the night. They're mirrored in our bodies, in our ovulation cycle. They're mirrored in all of these naturally regenerating cycles. When we do that, when we weave into those, we become more fertile. I have thousands of students who become pregnant really easily and without much effort once they start to kind of do some of these practices. And specifically about the herbs, we really focus on nourishing herbs. And so the nourishing herbs are the wild weeds that grow abundantly in every ecosystem. They're plants like nettles, stinging nettles, or like oat straw, or cleavers, red raspberry leaf. They're plants that are super high in vitamins and in minerals and enzymes, and they build tissue. And so that's what we want to be doing when we're wanting to get pregnant. Is we're not wanting to be like detoxifying. We're not wanting to be pushing ourselves. We're not wanting to be stressing ourselves out or exhausting ourselves. We want to be relaxing and building tissue and creating this like fertile garden inside.
Oh, wow. That makes sense.
Another thing that I like to think about and share is that, because we have this ancient nervous system, back in the day, we would get pregnant when there was an abundance of food, and specifically fat.
Oh, great.
Yummy. Yummy. All the good stuff. Like that's the fertile stuff, right? So like when the tribe would, when there'd be like a ton of hunting that came in and all these fats. And so then there wouldn't be this like anxiety of like, oh my God, when am I going to get my next meal? And the body's relaxed. There's an abundance.
Oh, wow.
And then the bodies get pregnant, and like women group wise collectively would get pregnant. Versus in moments where like we're like struggling for food, or it's winter, or we're like just eating off of the reserves, the collective fertility would go down. And we can mirror that. It's really wise to mirror that. And I find that actually eating animal fats can be really promoting to fertility. There is something about the body that just primordially and the nervous system really just kind of relaxes and is like, I'm receiving deep nourishment, deep tonification. So I'm a huge fan of bone broth. I'm a huge fan of eggs, grass-fed butter, any raw dairy. I'm a huge fan of avocados and plant-based fat as well. Absolutely. And then all of these wild plants that give you all of this nutrition that make your cells so alive and that build blood. All those plants, nettles, red raspberry leaf, they all build blood. And that's what we really want as well.
Well, so if you were somebody who like lived in a city or, didn't have this amazing wildflower garden, like where would you go to find this? Because I feel like the answer maybe is not like in the tea bag, in the tea aisle at the grocery store. Like I feel like there's probably something. There has to be another way that's a little bit more clean than that. Like how would you do that?
It's so easy these days, which is so great. You can go on, any store online that has bulk organic herbs. A few of those are like, Mountain Rose Herbs is a really well-known one. It's always great, to find a local apothecary where you can buy your herbs bulk locally. And the nice thing about that is, of course, supporting local business, but you end up developing a relationship with the people that work at the apothecary, and you get a lot of free herbal advice. All of them are herbalists, and us herbalists love to talk about plants. And so, developing a relationship with your local apothecary and your local witches is such a good idea. But you can just get like a pound of organic dried nettle leaf. And then what I would do is every evening before you go to bed, I would take like a nice generous handful of the dried nettle and put it in a 32-ounce jar. It's like a medium mason jar. And top it off with water that's just room temperature. And put a lid on it, shake it, and let it sit overnight. In the morning, you're going to get a raw, deep green extraction of these wild weeds, you're going to have this tea that's like this deep, deep green brown color, and strain it and then just drink as much of it as your body wants on an empty stomach, and then put the rest in the fridge and drink like 1 quart a day. You're going to have the most, this is actually the first assignment that I give my students.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool.
Oh my God, we're on it.
Yeah. 30 days, they choose which wild weed, but nettles is a great one to start with. And the things, that happen are amazing. Like some of the side effects are your skin gets really beautiful because all of these plants.
God.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I know. Your hair starts to grow thicker. Your nails get stronger. These plants with all of those minerals, and vitamins, they just fortify the body. Also, digestion seems to improve pretty much for everybody. The nourishing herbs, they actually help the mucous membranes that line our body absorb more nutrients from our food even. So digestion improves. Also energy levels. It's like nettles is an amazing tonic for the adrenals. And I feel like all of us have adrenal fatigue.
Yeah.
I don't know a mother without it.
Yeah, exactly. So, drinking the nettles is going to give you, like in the moment, it calms anxiety. It makes you feel like grounded and nourished and kind of full. But then every day when you drink it, you notice like after a week, after 2 weeks, you're like, I have more energy. I have more mental clarity. I'm not reaching for coffee or sugar as much anymore. It's amazing.
Wow. We you see us speed to the shop to get it. We're both at the apothecary.
I'm Googling my apothecary.
Yeah, local yeah. And we're really close right now. We're neighbors at the moment.
I know. I feel like we're not that far from you in Topanga. So tell us what apothecary we need to go to.
Yeah, tell us.
Where are you? Are you ladies in West LA right now?
Malibu.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, there is the Anima Mundi. She opened an apothecary in Venice. So she has some bulk herbs there. And then on the east side of LA, there's Wild Tara, who was one of my students that opened that apothecary. Yeah. And then, there's those are just some of the ones we have in LA that I know about. But again, there's a lot. You could also just, get it online if it's just going to be easier for somebody. And I would just get a pound.
Would that be the same? Would you continue that throughout pregnancy then as well? Is that the same kind of thing? Because I know I've heard about red raspberry leaf tea for pregnancy and everything. So would you do nettles or raspberry leaf tea throughout a pregnancy?
Yeah. So what I find is that sometimes in that first trimester, it's hard. Smells are hard, tastes are hard,
Yeah.
And the nettles, the way that it feels when you drink it is you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm suckling at the teat of the earth mother.
Yeah.
It's just you're like, where has this been my whole life? And it's nice to also, make sure you keep it cold. Right now in the heat, sometimes what happens is that overnight, the tea, it's too hot. And if it's warm in our houses, and then the tea will look more like this brown color, almost like a dark beer. And if you smell it and it smells like it's gone bad, like a swamp, then it was too hot. So you can even just shake it and keep it in your fridge. If you're living in LA and it's hot right now and it's starting to get hot, that might be a good thing to do. So the nettles, because it can, it's one of those things where because it's rich in minerals and vitamins, it will go rancid after a day. You want to refrigerate it. And so there is on a bad day, the nettles can taste a little bit like a lake, or kelp. And so I find that for first trimester, sometimes you're just I can't. Although mixing nettles with peppermint is really refreshing and you're still able to get that nutrition. But throughout pregnancy, it's such a good idea. And then it even increases the production of breast milk. So it's wonderful postpartum. And it'll make your booby milk filled with vitamins and enzymes for the baby. So it's so nutritive. It's so wonderful. And red raspberry leaf is one that's famous because it's a little more astringent. When you drink it, you're kind of you have this suckering. And what that is telling you in the language of the plants is that it's tonifying and tightening mucous membranes. And so it does that to the uterus. It like tones the uterus membrane or the mucous membranes of the uterus. So it helps prevent miscarriage because it's like strengthening the integrity of the womb.
Wow.
And that's why a lot of people love drinking it, especially like in their second and third trimester. But sometimes, the first trimester, I, as an herbalist, also tend to not recommend almost any herbs because there's such a fear of miscarriage then. And as an herbalist, also, like, we want to protect ourselves. And you just never know, my sense after, having been pregnant before, having released pregnancies, and I'm actually pregnant right now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You are?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Congratulations.
This is amazing.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I would tell you guys because I haven't told anyone publicly, but I'm 4 months pregnant.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Feels like the right place to
Congratulations. Oh my
Thank
goodness.
Warms my heart so much. Oh my God.
That's amazing.
Okay, so like I love that you're talking about this because you're actually going through it.
Yeah. We're both like wanting to get pregnant.
Good.
So
I'm so excited. Yeah. Well, I just turned 41, and I think I was hearing on the last podcast that I listened to that you ladies are probably in the same age group as I am.
Yeah, I'm 40. So yeah, that's amazing. Oh my God.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. That's so exciting.
So happy for you.
Everything you were saying, I was like, oh no, I think I'm doing the opposite to that. Like I'm like, I'm going to get healthy because I froze my eggs when I was a fair bit younger. Mm-hmm. And we recently had a pregnancy loss. And I have like super, super high risk pregnancies. So my doctor's like, I've already got 4, plus my stepson, and my doctor's like, if you want to have any more, you need to do IVF. We need to stop. Like, you need to do IVF. And I was like, okay. And just to make sure the baby's healthy because of our high risk pregnancy. So I was like, all right, we'll do that. We'll use the eggs that I froze and maybe I'll do one more cycle. So I'm just about to gear up to start doing that. And I'm going to be taking all these drugs and all these things that I've never done. I barely even take Panadol for a headache. So I was thinking in my head, I'm like, I've just got to get as healthy as possible. So now I've been doing intermittent fasting. And what you were saying about like eating a lot of food. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'm doing the opposite. Like I've been doing the 16-8. I've been like working out so much every day. I work out 40 minutes a day. I really push myself, but I haven't worked out in years. And now I'm like, I think this is the exact opposite to what you were saying. Like I should be resting and eating a lot of food and just anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting. I think intermittent fasting can be so great for so many things. And 16-8 isn't that dramatic, right? It's still, but you don't want to put your body in a stress response. So if you're naturally like, I ate dinner and now I'm kind of hungry. And it's been 16 hours. Awesome. But if you're like, oh my God, I just need to eat something. My blood sugar's crashing. This sucks. I still have an hour left. Then I would say in the context of wanting to get pregnant, I wouldn't do that. And so I think it is a time to really like do what's most nourishing, what's most pleasureful. And of course, that doesn't mean like sitting and eating 10 chocolate croissants every day. Like, that wouldn't be healthy.
Like Sarah's pregnancy with Esme.
My second pregnancy, that's basically all I did.
I mean, I'll be honest, I've been on like a mega carb and sweet and everything since I've gotten pregnant. But I think that, preparing our bodies with just nutrient dense foods before getting pregnant. And then of course, throughout the pregnancy, really going for that nutrient dense food as well is so great. And like walking is so wonderful for the hips and for the uterus and for our nervous system. So if you're working out and you're like, and you're in that kind of more adrenaline thing, which like for me, there are moments in my life where I love doing that. And I typically drink coffee beforehand because then it like gets me to be like, yeah, I'm like, but coffee depletes our adrenals. Coffee puts us into a stress response. So kind of like allowing the softening to happen, allowing the relaxation, not pushing yourself, maybe not drinking coffee or caffeine, letting your body really just feel really safe and relaxed instead of like needing to perform.
And for those people who I've actually never had a coffee in my life, but everyone I know drinks
love coffee.
Yeah. So for
I
people,
have at least one cup.
I know. So for people who have coffee every day, like would you say the great alternative is the nettle leaf, like you were saying, like for that sort of pick me up? And I know it's a bit of a ritual. Is that what it is for you, Sarah? It's like it's a part of the morning ritual.
Yeah, it's like a warm beverage thing for me. I also like the smell, I think, is sense memory for me too. So there's like I don't know. And it's not, it doesn't have to be a lot of it at all. Like sometimes I'll drink half of it. It's like maybe this big, and then that's all I've had. And then I like work out and have my water and like whatever. And so I just like, it really just depends. But for me, it's like the smell and the warmness. I love warm when I wake up.
Totally. I mean, I go through moments of drinking coffee, and whenever I do, I'm like, oh, I love you. Oh, you make me so happy. It's super cozy. And like, even just like but for me, it's not super healthy, and I get addicted to it. Some people don't. So I think, again, this is one of those things where I don't want to say that coffee is bad for everybody. And what I find is looking at like the Ayurvedic ways of recognizing patterns of wellness and disease. They have the 3 doshas, the kapha, the pitta, and the vata. And the kapha people tend to be more heavy set. They have a slower metabolism. They tend to be a little bit, there's other descriptors too, like thick, luscious hair, big eyes, but they tend to just be a little bit more heavy build. And they also like, they could like eat 1 meal a day and they're not hungry. The pitta people is fire element. And I'm a pitta. We're like, oh, hey, I want to keep going and and like, oh, now my blood sugar's crashing. I better eat. And now I'm going to, and like, we're always wanting to be doing something. But
that would be me.
Yes. But then we can crash. And then the vata people, and I have some vata too, are typically like the very thin, tall, airy people who are so sensitive and, like anxiety prone and just anything kind
that's
of
weird. I feel like you're describing me. That's so strange.
And so I have vata. We all have all of these doshas, but in different amounts. And the vata is equated to air, so it's very like mutable, changeable. Vata people can get dry. They really need to like lubricate and hydrate and ground. People with vata tend to love yoga because it's like, So coffee seems to be great for the kaphic people who have this slow metabolism, and it kind of revs up their engine a little. Coffee tends to create more anxiety and depletion in the pitta and the vata people. And, I think a great alternative if one still wants to do caffeine is matcha. Like I love matcha too.
Yes.
It's another great one. And then for that warm, cozy, I have a recipe in my book, which is this adaptogenic chai. And it has the roots of burdock. Burdock is another wild weed that has all of the vitamins, minerals. So you're getting all that nutrition. And then it has some Eleuthera, which is called Siberian ginseng as well. It's another root. And then you can just add some cinnamon sticks and you just keep this pot on your stove, and that you get that thing in the morning of like the smell, the groundedness, the like rooted, the yummy. And then you can add like oat milk or almond milk or, whatever you want. And you can have that warm grounding. And then for people who like really don't want to get rid of their coffee, I recommend switching to mushroom coffee. Coffee that just has the medicinal mushrooms in it. And then you're at least getting those adaptogens that kind of, support the adrenals and have all those antioxidants that, that's just kind of a nicer way to support our bodies.
Oh my goodness.
What would you say for people who, speaking of myself, who like, I think I'm allergic to mushrooms. The times in which I've had mushrooms in my life, many times, I get a very swollen stomach. Like it hurts and swells. And so I don't know if I'm allergic to all mushrooms or if it's just like certain mushrooms, but it's pretty intense pain. And I'm like, I guess I should also say that I have celiac, but I was sort of brought up on the same way that you were talking about, where it's like as soon as I had a cold, I was given antibiotics, and I had a lot of antibiotics as a child. And then, somewhere in my 20s, I found out that I was like highly allergic to gluten based on like blacking out, swelling stomach, like trying to go to the bathroom, my body was shut down. And so
Wow.
It was like a really visceral reaction, and stopped having that so many years ago, and am completely like, it's a celiac diet. But yeah, I know I have had gut issues. I know that my gut is very healthy now because of testing and everything that I've done to check it out. And I also eat pretty clean. But if you can't have mushrooms, which bums me out because I love mushrooms, what is like alternatives to?
Yeah, there's so many alternatives.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think the thing why people love mushrooms is because they're in the category of herbs that's called adaptogens. And adaptogens help our body adapt to stress. And they also strengthen the nervous system, the endocrine system, which is responsible for our hormone production. It's like this tonifying, balancing. The adaptogens also have this like intelligence with our immune system, where if we have an overactive immune system, like autoimmune disease, it'll calm that like overactive response. And if our immune system's weak, it'll strengthen it. So adaptogens are amazing. And that's why, people, they used to be like something herbalists knew about. Now everybody knows about adaptogens. And there are other ones like rhodiola, Siberian ginseng. Those are two great. Schisandra is one of my favorites. There's like all these great herbs that are adaptogenic, even nettles, tulsi, holy basil.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, those are all adaptogenic. So you can drink those daily, take them daily in capsule form or as teas, and you're going to get that. They have adaptogens like work slowly over time by like this consistency. So it's that daily, use that really builds resiliency and health and vitality and longevity.
I love Tulsi. I went a few times after I had pregnancy loss to an Ayurvedic, did some Ayurvedic treatment and stuff like that, and sort of was trying to help heal my womb, and did steaming and everything. But there was, I think it was called Tulsi, a Tulsi tea that they would give me to drink, and it was so good and nourishing. And I remember being like, can you just can I Google where to get this?
Well, you can get it at any apothecary.
Yes,
you can get it online. Just bulk dried Tulsi. It's so delicious.
Yeah,
and
it's really good.
It's actually the embodiment of the Divine Mother in India.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So there are temples, like how in India they tend to have these temples with beautiful statues of the deities. Mm-hmm. Well, the plant itself of Tulsi is seen as the living divine embodiment of the mother goddess.
Oh my goodness.
And so you'll go to a temple and there'll be like a pot of Tulsi plant, and people are making offerings to it. So it's a beautiful plant for mothers. It's really calming to the nervous system. It's aromatic. It's heart opening. It's really great for the respiratory system, and it's an adaptogen. And that plant, because it's more aromatic, you wouldn't use as much as the nettles. You know how I was like, take a big handful of nettles. Mm-hmm. The Tulsi, you would just like take a pinch and, and just put it in like a mug or make a hot tea. Just because it's
so potent.
Yeah,
less
it's
is more.
stronger. Mm-hmm, yeah, and you don't have to infuse it. You would infuse it with hot water like a tea. And then I actually have a French press that I use for my herbs.
Oh, wow.
And that's just such a nice way to, not have to like strain things or worry about getting plants in your mouth. But you can make a delicious tea with just Tulsi in a French press and hot water. And that'll be so lovely. It's also great, like kind of pre-getting pregnant, because it calms the nervous system and it builds the body's kind of capacity.
I heard you use the term when you were describing someone like the green witch. And I Sarah and I talk about like our witchiness and that we want to be in a coven and we, all these things, all this like magic that, all our magical thinking and everything that we've sort of explored. And we've kind of cracked open in this area of our lives, Sarah and I recently, and we're on this journey together and we get really excited about it. So when we heard like the name of your book, we were like, oh my gosh, she speaks our language. Can you just talk about sort of that a little bit? I mean, we had someone on and we talked pretty extensively about the idea of the witch wound, but people are so afraid of like the term witch. And I'd just like to hear your definition of, is it in people who are intuitive? What is it? Because, this is something that we like to dance with a little bit.
Yeah, I love that you're asking this question. And you're right. People hear the word witch and, we've been really conditioned to hear the word witch and imagine like the cartoons of our youth of like a green woman with warts on her face who's evil. But a true witch goes by the principle of everything that you do goes back to you threefold. So there's a real understanding that we are living within a web of life and energy, and anything that we put out there is going to come back to us. So the idea of like an evil, maleficent witch is really nothing that I'm familiar with. And of course, there are people in all cultures that practice black magic. That's very real. I'm not negating that. But for me, a witch is someone who uses their intention, magic, power, and energy to create transformation at will for the betterment of the earth and people. And a green witch is specifically a person, it can be any gender, who speaks to the plants and who takes care of the plants and who uses the plants to create said transformation. And so it's, the herbalists, the midwives, and also like the grandmothers who have just that one special soup that will heal you. And it's, it's a path of nourishment. It's a path of nourishment and of creating wholeness. And another thing that I think is so important about being a witch is it's about empowerment and about really not participating in structures of power dynamics. And so, as a witch, when I'm working with someone, I want to facilitate them falling in love with the earth, them developing relationship with the plants, them deepening their intuition, because no matter how good of a healer I am, I don't know people's karma. Mm-hmm. And the best thing I can do is to support someone in being able to really come into their own power and come into their own intuition and make clear decisions that are conscious based on, their open heart and what they want in life, and not based on unconscious wounds. And so, when I look at a lot of even like different forms of healing, there's a lot of ego.
Yes.
And that's sure. Always a red flag for me. If someone's like, oh, I have the, and so come to me and I will heal you, or like, or you're sick because you've been bad, so now you have to punish yourself and detox, or like the answer is in this secret herb or in this like magical test. Then I'm like, whoa. Like at the root, that's not healing. At the root, that's creating more power dynamics and disempowerment. And so really my path and this path of herbalism is about empowerment and about returning to each of us our birthright of having our own direct relationship with the earth and the plants and our own medicine.
I want to come to your school.
You should.
It's so beautiful.
How do people do that? Do we sign up, or is there like a vetting process? Do we pass the test? Can we come?
Anybody is welcome. And we open registration on the summer solstice, and it's open throughout the summer, and we start together on September 9th. And
my goodness.
And it's online, but we have a lot of in-person mentors who create in-person workshops for the students. So there's a lot of opportunity to practice and to make medicine and to be in community. And especially here in LA, we have a huge community. We do herbal baggings every month, and it's so, so sweet. And then we journey together for 10 months through the seasons in the wheel of the year. And so students receive 4 herbs in the mail each month. And at the start of each month, we each make our teas, and we have this Zoom opening ceremony where I guide students in plant meditations. And so we drink each tea, and without knowing about the medicinal properties, we learn how to recognize the language of the herbs in our bodies. And really, it's like a form of tantric herbalism, because it's about really entering the senses in your body and then noticing what happens and where the plant goes. And then really even invoking the spirit of each plant. And that's like our biggest
we have
kind
to do
of
this.
I'm obsessed. I'm like, Sarah.
It's very witchy.
Yes. I
know what
mean,
we're doing.
But wait, this is what we did when we were at Christie's, because you
yes.
had us drink this tea.
Yes.
And I remember thinking that the tea was very cooling. It made me like feel like so comforted. Like it felt nourishing. And that was the raspberry leaf tea.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Which is a cooling herb, and it's nourishing and it's calming to the nervous system. So throughout the 10 months, it's like, there's one of these each month, these main ceremonies. And so students develop the capacity to learn directly from the herbs. And then we have a time to journal and share. And it'll be amazing, because someone will be like, I really felt like the energy of a grandmother. And someone goes, me too. Or like another plant, like, wow, that was really sexy. And like, da, da, da. And so we share with each other. And then I talk about each plant and talk about its medicinal properties. But I don't talk about it until you've had your own embodied experience. And so that's kind of how each month starts. And then there's, different videos and lessons on the course platform. There's like a live Q&A each month for folks to ask any questions. There's a guest expert each month, someone who comes in and speaks to the theme of the month in their area. And then we have a closing ceremony each month. So it's this really sweet rhythm. And the people that are called to this work are just, it's like your heart just explodes, because we get to create a really safe and sacred and deep container for our own healing and for our own empowerment, and also to become herbalists and to help others.
Oh, I can hear daisies all over the world being like signing up immediately. Must get in now.
I know. Same. I mean, that's how I feel. I'm like, oh my God, like, are we able to do this? Like, we have to do it. This is so amazing. Thank you so much for coming on our show and for sharing your knowledge and
your beautiful news. Thank you for sharing that.
And just your heart. Like, it's just, I don't know, you just have such a calming presence. And I really was so moved by everything that we did that day. And so thank you for being here. And
well, it's such an honor to be here and to be with you, and so much fun and so sweet to connect in this way. And
I'm so happy for your daughter that she gets to have a little sibling.
I know.
That was always my dream. I was like, I just want a sibling when I was, so I'm so happy for her.
She's so excited. I'm so glad, because, she's been an only child for 12 years. So I wasn't sure. But she's so sweet. She says to me the other day, she's like, Mama, I just love this baby so much already. I think I love this baby more than I love myself.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, well, that's not healthy, but
yeah, that is just so, but the sentiment is
so
just
sweet.
it goes to show just what a big heart she has. And
she's going to be amazing.
yeah. And I'm so grateful because, you know, I was a single mom with her, and to now have like a wonderful partner who I feel just is going to be such a great dad. And then to have this epic daughter who's just such a little mama, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to be supported this time.
You're going to be so supported. It's going to feel different.
It's going to feel so good. Oh my gosh.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
We'll have to have you on after the birth so you can tell us all about
the story.
that too.
That's good. Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. Daisies, you've been listening to the Mother Days podcast. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Bye, guys.
Bye.